So we've been talking about this for quite some time, and there is enough reason to talk about it even further, because we have two special guests on the show now in this evening. We have India's two top taxmen. We've got Ravi Agarwal, Chairman CBDT, that's the Central Board for Direct Taxes, and we also have Sajay Kumar Agarwal, Chairperson CBIC, the Central Board of Indirect Taxes and Customs. Welcome to you both. Mr. Ravi Agarwal, if I could come to you first. Now, in terms of the direct taxes, there's a relief being given, particularly to the middle class. But just explain to us, how does it really work for almost everyone, so that the old tax regime, in a way, could become redundant if it's not completely phased out by the government itself through this new income tax bill that will come in?
Yeah, so first, thank you so much for giving us this opportunity. First, I'll talk about the new tax regime and the slab rates that have been introduced through this finance bill. So as was being mentioned earlier, the new tax slabs are 4 to 8 lakhs is 5%, 0 to 4 it's 0, 4 to 8 is 5%, 8 to 12 it is 10%, and so on. A new tax slab of 25% has also been introduced for income between 20 lakhs to 24 lakhs, and 24 lakh onwards it's 30%. So to 24, why 24 lakhs? Because 2 lakhs per month, a person who is deriving an income of 2 lakhs per month, till that slab or income, the tax slab has been reduced. Now, as has been already announced, for income up to 12 lakhs, the tax liability now is 0, and that's a combination of the change in the tax slabs as also the rebate that is being given.
And you add the standard deduction, so it becomes 12.75 per annum.
No, so it's that 75,000 is standard deduction for the salaried class.
Okay.
Even if it is not salaried, the individual is earning income which is other than salary.
That's 12
and the
still.
income is say 12 lakhs. Then the person would not be liable to pay any income tax. Now, if you calculate this 12 lakh tax liability otherwise through the tax slabs, what one would find is that the income which is coming is the tax that is coming is 60,000. Now, through the rebate, this 60,000 is being reduced to 0. So therefore, for a person who is otherwise, if you actually calculate his liability through the tax slab, would have been 60,000, but a rebate of 60,000 is 60 minus 60 is equal to 0.
Right.
So that's how that person who is deriving an income of 12 lakhs, combination of slab as well as the rebate, ultimately the tax liability becomes 0.
Could you clarify one belief that people seem to be having, that the moment you cross the 12 lakh threshold, suddenly you get a tax liability? Before that you have nothing. So if I get an increment tomorrow and I'm earning below 12 lakh, but suddenly I'm above 12 lakh the next day, I have a tax liability?
No, so that's what. So basically it is not a quantum jump. We give what has been proposed, and that was earlier also in the Act, a concept of a marginal relief.
Okay.
So the marginal relief is such, for example, you have an income of say 12 lakh 50,000. Right? So you calculate the tax on 12 lakh 50,000. If you see the slabs on 12 lakh 50,000, otherwise the income would have been tax liability would have been 67,500. So naturally a taxpayer would ask, well, I have earned only 50,000 more than 12 lakhs, and here I am being fastened with a liability of 67,500, which is more than 50,000. So here, through marginal relief, the tax would be only 50,000.
Okay.
So this 67,500, which was otherwise being computed through the tax slab, the person gets a relief benefit, and it's only 50,000, which is over and above 12 lakhs. That is what the person is supposed to pay. Now this, if you calculate, till 12 lakh 75,000, this thing remains, because at 12 lakh 75,000, the tax liability as per tax slab is 71,250. Right? And so that gets offset. So therefore, beyond 12 lakh 75,000, then there is no marginal relief. And the tax liability then
So would you say with these changes now, everybody, no matter how much you earn, will feel that the new tax regime is better than the old one?
yes, because through the tax slab, change in the tax slabs, even a person who is having an income of more than 24 lakhs gets a tax benefit of 1,10,000. So it's across for all income above 24 lakhs, the tax benefit is 1,10,000. So therefore, cutting across all the category of taxpayers, individual taxpayers, the tax benefit is there.
And regardless of all the exemptions in the old regime.
Yes. So now if you now compare it with the old regime, what does the old regime have? It is the exemptions and deductions. That is the benefit. Right? Now with 30%, that means that the deductions and exemptions would translate to about 3 lakhs or 3.5 lakhs. Right? So therefore, the incentive to remain in the old tax regime largely is taken away. So the nudge is to move towards the new regime. And incidentally, till now, 74% of the people have already on their own, they have found merit in shifting to the new regime. We feel that with this proposal in the budget, more people would actually want to adopt the new scheme. Yes.
Okay.
And talking about indirect tax and customs, Mr. Sanjay Agrawal, why don't you break it down for our viewers and explain to them what it means or what implications for the various stakeholders?
In this budget, a rate rationalization exercise has been carried out, which was announced by the Honorable FM in the July 2024 budget. And in that, we have gone through the entire gamut of the items which are considered as industrial goods. We kept out agricultural goods and the textiles from this exercise, or industrial goods with the objective that we keep on, we simplify the tax rate structure, we ensure that the Indian industry remain competitive,
Right.
and then ensure that there is ease of doing business and enough protection is provided to specific sectors for a short duration. These were the objectives with this rate rationalization exercise has been carried out, and the higher rate of tax, which is say 25%, 30%, 35%, 40%, 100%, 125% and 150% on industrial goods. These rates have been eliminated, and now only 8 rates including the zero rate has been retained, and these rates are in a narrow band from 0% to 10%, and it is in a graded manner. We have imposed or applied the tax rate on a distinct stage of the value addition chain. So on raw materials and minerals, we have kept that rate at 0 or 2.5%. After certain processing on the inputs, the intermediate goods which have come into existence, on that we have kept the rate at 5% or 7.5%. On capital goods, we have kept the rate of 7.5%, and finished goods it is 10%. And these rates have, in fact, most of the tariff lines are within these rates, and this has stabilized over last 17 years. So this has remained largely untouched. On 15% and 20% rate, the items are generally which are covered under PLI or PMP scheme to promote Make in India. So again, the goods which are covered under PLI and PMP scheme and their raw materials we have not touched. On certain goods which are capped at these rates, because there was surge in imports of cheaper goods, to give such protection to industry, we have retained the rates on such items, but we have moved the rates which were higher than 20% but lower than 70% to 20%.
Okay.
And the rates which were higher than 70% have been moved to 70%, but the effective incidence of duty has largely remained unchanged by imposition of AIDC cess, which is Agriculture and Infrastructure Development cess, on certain items where we felt that yes, rate duty incidence can be brought down. There the AIDC is marginally lower than the compensating rate
So
which
these
is
changes
required.
that you brought in, Mr. Sanjay Agrawal, these have been brought in keeping a lot of factors in mind. Has the Trump factor also come in over here, that we're trying to be accommodative before Mr. Trump's tariff gaze turns towards India?
No, I think that is not the objective. The idea was what was announced in the last budget, and this was a overdue exercise, because there were certain rates which were very high, and these exceptions were there in existence for very long time, like this 100%, 125% or 150%. These rates are applicable to very few items, like this 125% and is applicable only to passenger cars. Similarly, 100% rate is applicable again to very few items, like to say baggage or maybe couple of more
Harley
items.
Davidsons.
150% is a rate which is applicable to only laboratory chemicals, only single item is there, other than which are agriculture goods, maybe alcohol. So these rates, there was no need to keep such high rates. So what has been done to bring them down to 70% and impose AIDC wherever required to provide protection to the Indian industry for the time being. But definitely in future we can look into those rates, wherever it can be brought down will be brought down. On certain rates like 30%, there were only 4 items.
And these change
Sorbitol
also
and
depending on how we conduct our trade relations. If we have more FTAs with other countries or other unions, things could change further.
In fact, on these items which were there on 30% rate, the effective rate was already lower. So there was no need to keep this higher rate, because that otherwise gives a very bad optics. And by conducting this exercise, the average customs duty rate, which was earlier 11.65%, has now come down to 10.66%. So there is a substantial, almost 10% reduction in this average rate.
Right.
Yes.
Talking about income tax, Mr. Ravi Agarwal, I mean, Minister Sitharaman spoke about how a draft income tax bill can be expected as early as next week. She spoke about simplifying it, making it easier for the individual taxpayers. For the taxpayers watching this broadcast, what should they expect from this revamped or revised new bill that's going to be presented to the nation next week? Will it become easier for someone like me, say, to file my own IT returns on my own?
Yeah, so if you recall last July, Honorable Finance Minister had announced that we would work on a comprehensive review of the tax bill, tax act, and we would work towards simplification of the existing Income Tax Act 61. So we have, in the last 6 months, we have done that exercise, and the basic focus was to simplify the language of the act.
I see.
You see, let it be a simple, active sentence which is easy to comprehend, smaller sentences that we may have, so that the normal taxpayer does not, there should not be any need to actually consult a tax expert in that sense. Because if the transaction is simple enough, one should be able to go through the act and find out what is the liability. And coupled with the fact that you have a new tax regime, so wherein the deductions and all those go, then it becomes simple exercise for the taxpayer to go about it. So a comprehensive exercise has been done, wherein the language has been simplified, the way it is being presented, the sections are being presented are, making it easier, user-friendly also. In the process, wherever the redundancies had cropped up, because it is a 1961 Act.
Yes.
So over a period of time, redundancies had crept in, so that has been removed. There were duplications or some obsolete sections were there which were actually forming part, making the Act bulky. So that has also been removed.
So focus shifts from justice and trust, from punishment to justice and trust. Is that how you?
So that is not, that is of course, that is the basic philosophy in which we are moving, and that is not confined to only this Act. Ultimately in this bill also, if you see that we have actually taken care of rationalization of TDS rates and decriminalization and penalties and all that thing. But essentially the idea is that if you make it simple, then and the clarity is there,
Compliance
it becomes more the certainty, tax certainty, compliance improves, litigation reduces.
True.
Right?
Yeah, compliance has to improve because you're foregoing tax as well. And on that note, I'm going to have to thank both of you because we've been told to wind up from our panel. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Ravi Agarwal, Chairman CBDT, and Sanjay Kumar Agarwal, Chairman CBIC, to talk about the entire tax regime, both direct and indirect, and how things will then be taken forward as well as far as the new income tax bill is concerned, which will be tabled in Parliament perhaps next week. We'll take a quick break.